This is the Amy Edwards Show, and I'm your host, Amy. This show is here to help all of us live our best life and feel amazing at absolutely every age. We focus on transformation and empowerment through practical tools, strategies, habits, and mindset shifts that will help you unlock your potential, build self-love, and embrace your unique journey. We'll cover everything from health and wellness to personal growth and spirituality with inspiring guests and real conversations. So if you're ready to level up, break out of your comfort zone, and make lasting changes, you're in the right place. It's never too late. In fact, some of your best days haven't even happened yet. Let's get to it. Love this moment and make the next one even shinier. Hello, welcome to the show. Oh my gosh, you guys, I know I say it every time, but I am really excited. This is a topic that is very dear to my heart. So today we're welcoming Tricia Nelson. Tricia is an emotional eating expert who lost 50 pounds by uncovering and healing the root causes of her emotional eating. After years of using food to cope, she spent over 30 years researching the hidden drivers behind overeating and addictive patterns. And now through her Heal Your Hunger systems and online programs, she has helped thousands of people transform their relationship with food. She's the author of the #1 best-selling book, Heal Your Hunger: 7 Simple Steps to End Emotional Eating Now. Right now. I love that. Let's put now on there. And the host of the Heal Your Hunger Show podcast. Her TEDx talk has over 1 million views, and she's been featured on NBC, CBS, Fox, KTLA, the list goes on. So welcome, Tricia. As a recovering emotional eater myself, I am very excited to talk about this today. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Great to be here. What an honor.
Oh my gosh, totally. The pleasure is on this side of the microphones. And I know I'm really, really excited. So let's just jump right in. I want to know about this not being a linear path. Like it says, stop emotional eating now. And how do you keep from beating yourself up when I know from my own experience that growth is not a linear path?
100%. Yeah, no, it's, I'm constantly telling people progress, not perfection. There is no perfection. It is not a black and white deal. You know, food is not like alcohol. Alcohol, you put the plug in the jug and that's it. But it doesn't work that way with food. You have to eat. And as I said in my TEDx talk, you have to take the tiger out of the cage, pet the nice kitty, and then get it back in the cage without getting your ass torn off. So, and you have to do that 3 times a day. So it's a different ballgame, And so, and typically it's a lifelong learned pattern. Most of the people I talk to they started at a very young age using food for comfort.
I did.
Yeah.
Me too. I mean, I try to be very open about it too. Cause I would come home from school and eat an entire bag of Lay's sour cream and onion chips. I love chips. And so, and a whole box of Ding Dogs and stuff. And my metabolism could handle it, but I was conditioning myself to feel overwhelmed and then turn to food and comfort.
Totally. And me as well, except that I didn't have such a blessed metabolism. So I was 50 pounds overweight, by age 21.
Wow.
I hated it. I had a roll in my tummy that I would imagine cutting. I was scrunched up in my hands and I imagined cutting it off like you cut fat off the side of a steak, and I imagined getting some disease, maybe I'll get a disease and I'll automatically lose weight, or maybe I should join the army and I'll be forced to exercise at boot camp because I hated to exercise. So some pretty crazy thoughts because I felt out of control with food. And so it's true. We most of us have started this at a young age. And, when we start stuffing with food, that's when we stop growing. Our emotional development is stunted when we start medicating our feelings instead of going through our feelings. But it's totally understandable. I mean, typically, we learn this and we turn to food because we don't have other tools as kids. It's not easy. We're living in a home that might be kind of messed up, and nobody's like teaching us good habits or good, processing our emotions. That doesn't happen. So we turn to whatever we can, and food is accessible. It's right there, and it works. It works momentarily. And so it's understandable that we would turn to food long before we could get our hands on something else, and so it becomes a habit. And then we bring, what was once a life-saving habit, like thank God we had food. We might have done something a lot more drastic and dangerous. But what started as a life-saving habit obviously turns on us as adults, and becomes a life-destroying habit. And so that was certainly my experience. And I was very blessed to get help when I was in my 20s. And I went everywhere, Amy. I tried, I literally did, of course, diets and exercise, because that's what you do first. And then you're like, oops, that's not working. And then I did 12-step programs. I did therapy I did twice a week eating disorders therapy. So I wasn't a slouch. I was reading all the books, right? I was doing all the things, but there was something still missing for me that didn't get me over the line. So that's when I was very blessed to meet my mentor, who is like, your problem is not food. Your problem is your relationship with yourself and with your emotions, and with God. You don't have you have a conscious separation from God, and that has to heal. So, but anyway, he set me on the right path and helped me on that path, which had nothing to do with food and weight. That was not my problem. That was my solution.
Yeah. Mine came up recently. So a lot of what you said just resonated, but mine, I found it related to safety and safety in my primary relationship. And he is in recovery and was dealing with addiction. And
Okay.
as we got together and I didn't feel safe in our relationship, this is hindsight, by the way, or during sight.
Yeah.
So we've been together almost 5 years now, but as he was dealing with his addiction, I didn't feel safe in our relationship, and I started eating for comfort and safety, and I gained 50 pounds. I gained 50 pounds, and it was just in the last 5 years. I know. And so it took him really stepping into his own recovery for us to stay together at all. He went to treatment and everything, but it took me still another 2 years after that to even feel safe enough for the weight to come off. And that was kind of astonishing to me, how deeply those things were tied, safety and eating. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks so much for sharing that. What an experience. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just come off in the last year, really.
Okay.
So,
Well,
yeah.
praise God for that. Obviously. So I love that you bring that up, because for sure for me as well, I had sexual abuse as a child, obviously, and it was from a relative. So obviously I didn't feel safe in that situation. But you don't have to have abuse to not feel safe. In your home, if you have a raging parent, or if you have alcoholism or addiction, any kind of situation where things are, chaotic,
Yeah.
not dependable.
Sometimes it's not so obvious, and that's a little bit insidious, right? You don't even know your reason or why you don't feel safe. That's an interesting thing to point out.
Yeah, and food does ground us,
Yes,
Food
totally.
food is there for us. It's always dependable. We can get it at any time. It's yummy. It feels comforting. It feels self-caring in the moment, I'm going to get my favorite ice cream and sit in front of the TV and zone out, it seems somewhat harmless. It's just that when we do that as a habit, obviously we pack on pounds, and then we feel isolated and depressed and self-hating, so it backfires. It totally backfires. But in the moment, it is a grounding thing. And the serotonin effect of sugar and carbs, that certainly lights up, it lights us up and helps us feel soothed as well. So it's hard because it's, again, you have to eat, and everybody's like, it's socially acceptable to eat sugar and carbs. Everybody's serving it. And so it's hard to figure out, but it's when we get sick and tired of being sick and tired, obviously, just like the addict with drugs and alcohol, we have to come to our own place of feeling like, enough is enough. Like, I don't like how I feel. Nobody hates eating, right? Eating is great, but the effects of it and not liking how we feel in our bodies, and also the symptoms that come with it, because the longer we do this kind of thing, the more our bodies rebel, and
Yeah.
get gut issues and autoimmune issues and prediabetes and lack of mobility. I mean, the whole 9 yards. I have to have a whole new set of clothes. I mean, I had like 5 different sizes of pants in my closet because I was a yo-yo dieter and I never knew what size I was going to be, and I
Go away.
yeah, hoping to get back to those skinny jeans,
Well, so that must have been pretty frustrating for you in your 20s. You're pursuing all these different things like therapy or 12 steps and all that, and then it's not happening. So what was finally the turning point for you?
Yeah, it was really I was really blessed to meet my mentor who's since passed, but he kind of put so many things together. Like, I knew in my heart it wasn't about the food. I knew that, but nobody was really saying that. Like, people were, I was in these 12-step groups where people were like weighing and measuring their food. And it just, in my heart, I'm like, that's just kind of missing it. Like, it can't be about control, like it's got to be
Yeah.
about something. I really craved spirituality in my life. I really wanted a relationship with God, but I felt completely like I was missing it. I didn't feel connected to a higher power at all. Even though I grew up with that, and I didn't have a problem with it. Like, conceptually, I didn't like church. I found it very boring. But the idea of a higher power, I didn't struggle with that. But I felt completely disconnected and like I couldn't get with it. Like something was in the way, and something was in the way. Like, food was in the way for one thing. Like, when I needed comfort, I didn't pray. I ate because it's immediate. It feels good. It feels like it's working. And so I didn't got a sort of a back burner idea, and I turned to food for comfort. I turned to food when I was lonely. I turned to food when I was upset, or felt insecure or unsafe or whatever. So food, temporarily was my higher power if you think about it. And so my mentor pulled all those pieces together, like the spirituality, and also helping me see it's a deeper issue, that I had unaddressed emotions, and when I was in therapy, I was always in my head. So I was thinking a lot, but I wasn't feeling, like I wasn't in my heart. And there's nothing wrong with therapy. It's just that I was too kind of stiff, and I was in my head. Like, I was just in my head, and that was keeping a lot of feelings locked away in my heart. And when I started working with my mentor, who made me feel very safe, the floodgates opened and all this pain started coming out of me that I couldn't get to before, So safety is a huge part of it. Like, you have to feel safe enough to feel, and to not feel like you're gonna fall apart when you do, And I used to feel like, oh my God, if anybody ever knew what I was thinking, they would lock me up, because my mind was so like all over the place, and I had some pretty wild thoughts. That I'm like, I'm never gonna tell anybody this. Well, we're as sick as our secrets, right? And so basically, I had that stuff locked away until I felt safe enough to let it out and know that they're just feelings. Like, they're just crazy, out of control thoughts. It doesn't mean anything about me. I'm not bad. I'm not perverted. I'm not, I'm not scum of the earth, like these old things I told myself. I'm overloaded. Like, I'm overloaded with thoughts and feelings, and I feel completely isolated and alone. And there's a solution for that.
There's so much shame, tied up in that.
Yeah.
And all those things that you were saying. So what is the solution then? There's so many parallels too with addiction. It's so wild. Like, I mean, it is an addiction, right? But
Yeah, and I have on my website a quiz, which will help somebody understand where they are on the spectrum. And I bring that up when you mention addiction because on the low end of the spectrum, I call it the emotional eating spectrum. On the low end is emotional eating general. Like everybody can go overboard once in a while. Like, so it's not like, sure, we all have it in us, right? We all have it in us. And we're hardwired to have an emotional connection with food because, I mean, look at breastfeeding. It's such a beautiful, experience for the mom and the child. So it's kind of in our wiring. But, there's basically two things that kind of qualify where you end up on the emotional eating spectrum. On the low end is emotional eating. On the high end is food addiction, like all out food addiction. And where you end up on that spectrum is qualified by two things primarily. The first thing is the level of control you have. Like, can you scale back? Can you, like, go on a cruise, you eat a lot, you're on vacation, I paid for it ahead of time, gonna enjoy myself. You come back, you've got 5 extra pounds on you, and you're like, I don't like how my jeans fit, so I'm going to jog extra, for the next 2 weeks and cut out sugar. Boom, those 5 pounds are off. That's somebody with a lot of control, right? They can course correct, and they have control. And not too many consequences. 5 pounds, tight jeans. It's not terrible, right? Not terrible. But if you do that over and over again, or if you're somebody on the high end of the spectrum, you have less control and more consequences. So that's where I was. And what would happen if I were to go on the cruise and be like, I'm going to eat whatever I want. When I come home and I see that I've gained weight and my pants don't fit, then I fall down the rabbit hole and I keep eating. It's like my solution to having gained weight is to eat more. Makes a lot of sense, but that's,
no, I've done it though. I've done it. So yeah, I can relate. Yeah.
It's not rational, but it's what we do. And so it's like our solution for loneliness is to isolate and get under the covers,
Right. Yeah.
So the bottom line is I was on the high end of the spectrum. So I would fall down the rabbit hole. That 5 pounds would turn into 15 or 20. It could be months before I got back on track, And so that's somebody with very little control. And when you do that over and over, decade after decade, your body starts getting pissed off and talking back to you, and then you have more and more consequences. So that's where that's how you determine where you end up on that spectrum. And I have that quiz people can take.
I love that it's a spectrum too, by the way. It's just not this, spectrums, everything kind of is if we're willing to look at it that way.
Yeah, it's a continuum.
It is a continuum. And, maybe there's certain things that are you and like it's very just unique to each person. And I really appreciate that. Yeah. So what's next? So we've determined maybe where we are on the spectrum, and then
so taking that quiz, it's like a 3-minute quiz, free quiz, is definitely a great place to start, because you will get a personalized score, and then you get next steps, like there's a training that you can take based on your score, and that's a great place to start. It is, the solution to this is threefold. So people tend to overeat for 3 reasons, primarily. The first one is emotions we're not dealing with. And that's happening on a daily basis. It's like so much happens on a daily basis. We have feelings about everything, And if we're not in tune and we're not we don't have a good way of addressing our emotions, a healthy way of processing our emotions and the emotional overload that comes with life.
Yeah.
Then we're going to use food to modify how we feel, right?
Yeah.
So emotions, stress. So stress eating is a big part of why we eat when we just do too much. So stress is a big thing. And then just plain habit. Like eating is eating, like you had said earlier, it becomes a habit where that you're just turning to food to soften the edges of life.
And I know for me too, I can use it, excuse me, I've had like this allergy related cough. I apologize.
No.
I can use it as a procrastination technique, like almost where I'm like, well, I can't
Yeah.
get that done right now because I'm eating, so I'll eat something that takes like forever, like chips or, something like that.
Right. You got to get the job done. Totally get it. Yeah, but those three things, emotions, stress, and habit. So what you need to do is you need healthy tools to deal with your emotions. Okay, and it doesn't have to be big stuff, but just developing, like I teach people to meditate.
Mm.
Meditation is such a great way to get more emotionally balanced, because we start our day and we're looking at our phone or watching TikToks or whatever, and it's like
Mhm.
we don't know who we are. Like we're totally out of touch with our divine self, like our center, our core. So we're making decisions based on what everybody else thinks we should do, or so as to please other people. And we're not like grounded and connected with ourselves. So I say start the day with a morning routine where you can get connected, because otherwise you're just ricocheting off of every stressor that comes your way. And so that's a very important way to start getting connected to what you're feeling. Having a writing practice, like having a journal next to you where you can just kind of offload some emotions, explore some decisions that need to be made. We need to start tuning in, getting more emotionally intelligent. And it's not our nature, it's not our culture's nature to do this. Our nature is to go, 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 do, accomplish, accomplish, accomplish.
Mm.
And we've lost ourselves in that.
Yeah.
We don't know what we're feeling. And so we're just shoveling food thinking we just like chocolate. Like, it's like, I just like chocolate. That's why I'm eating. Well, that's not true. Chocolate's great. I like it too. It's not why you're eating. So that's
Uh,
step one.
do you recommend to people, like, do you keep a notepad in the pantry or like, is there some little trigger you can do like that? Because I was thinking, I've caught myself in real time before doing this,
Yeah.
but I don't have like a journal nearby, but I wonder if I wrote down how I was feeling. Like yesterday I ate a bag of chips, right? And I'm not proud of myself for that. They were better. They were like avocado oil, but still not great. I'm trying not to do that. And I don't know why I did exactly. And I had a moment where I was like, I'm shoving this in my mouth. I don't really want to, but I'm doing it anyway. And didn't have food prepped. Right? And so today I have food prepped, and so like that's a big key for me. I
Yeah.
was probably
And that's important.
tired, probably a little stressed about something. But the point is there something we can do like that? Like keep a
Yeah. Well,
paper by the fridge or,
to be perfectly frank, it's a little late. Eat it like
shit.
like we're not gonna write in the food pantry when we got the bag of chips open. It's not gonna happen. So so
Okay.
so the point is we need to start earlier. And that's why I say starting a morning routine. Guys, start your day on stress, because it's like you gotta put money in your spiritual bank account. And first thing in the morning, have some practices. Could be a breathing exercise, could be writing, could be reading spiritual literature. Like put money in your bank account. Feed your soul first thing in the morning so you can get more in tune with yourself. So when you do get stressed later in the day, first of all, you have a resource to draw on, right? You can take some withdrawals from that, the resources you've just put in first thing in the morning. But also you're just more aware, like, oh, I'm stressed. Like, oh, I just had a phone call that was upsetting to me. Oh, if I don't sit down and do some breathing exercises, I'm going to eat. So it slows you down. It gets you more in touch, and it helps you be more balanced. So that's really, really important. It's like we have to start sooner, and then of course, there's other work to be done as well. Overall, we have to address our stress. So we need to address our emotions, but we also have to address our stress. Overeaters are typically overdoers. We're just all day long going, 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 and you can't expect to eat less if you keep doing more.
Mm.
And it's just really important. I often tell my clients, you don't have an eating problem. You have a living problem.
Mm-hmm.
And what
Yeah.
I mean by that is we're just doing too much. We're doing too much. We have too much stress, and we're using food to offload the stress. And
Well, yeah, and if you're doing too much, you're not taking the time to fill your spiritual bank.
no,
I mean,
no, it's wrong in so many ways. So, but it's our nature. Like emotional eaters, in my book, I talk about what I call the anatomy of the emotional eater, and it's 24 personality traits that make up the emotional eater's personality. And these treats have nothing to do with food. So everybody's always like, oh, like I have to fix this problem. What's the right diet? Give me the keto or give me the this or give me that. IF, whatever. That's not the solution. I mean, how many diets have we been on? Plenty that are proof enough diets are not the solution. I mean, we all know what to eat. I mean,
yeah, we do.
we're not stupid.
No, we will.
Salads are better than pizza.
Right.
Right? And so the point is, it's really, we have to start looking at how we're living, and the emotional traits I'm talking about in the anatomy of the emotional eater, the number one trait, Amy, is people pleasing.
That's me.
I know.
That's me. I'm a recovering people pleaser. Yes, add 100%.
And welcome to the club. So so that's the thing though. And it's like people pleasing. What does that have to do with food? Well, let's play it out. When we are trying to get our feel goods from outside of us with outside validation, which we desperately want because we didn't get it growing up, right? Growing up, we were like starving for it. And then we learned how good we can feel when people are always giving us atta-girls or atta-boys, right? So we're always saying yes. We're always doing the extra project. We're like, get something done, give it to Amy, give it to Tricia, right? They'll get it done because we're overdoers. But the problem is a couple things. One is we're working ourselves to the bone trying to get that approval, right? Doing all that extra work. We're not sleeping enough. We're overdoing, burning the candle at both ends. So we're exhausted. But not only that, but nobody is ever as pleased as we plan on them being. Right? Like nobody's ever, like in our mind, we're expecting the fanfare and parade, but no, it doesn't come. It's like, oh, thanks. Oh, thanks. Like, do you know what I did? Like, I knocked myself out for this.
Yeah.
But between being resentful that we're not getting the accolades we want and being exhausted, it's just like the perfect storm for the I deserve it binge. Like, screw them. They're not going to recognize me. I'll reward myself. I'll get my favorite meal, sit down in front of the TV and have at it. So that's an example of how people pleasing sets us up for eating, even though ostensibly it has nothing to do with it. So, and that's also an example of where the change needs to happen in how we're living, not in how we're eating. That's a caboose on the train. We got to deal with the other cars on the train, which is how are you setting yourself up for that binge? You cannot be all things to all people and expect to not overeat. You cannot. It's not humanly possible. We're always trying to be superwoman, right? Superhero. And it's not a winning solution if you want to lose weight, stop overeating, have healthy choices on your plate. Something's got to give. And it can't be the diet specific, like solely because you can't sustain the diet. The diet is unsustainable. That's why 98% of all diets fail, is because we can't keep it up. I mean, everybody has new diet syndrome when they first go on a diet. It's like, woo, I'm doing it, But then 2 weeks later, it's a slog. And we're like, I need my food. Give me my good food. And it's because diets are treating the symptom, not the root of the problem. The root of the problem is how we're living. We're stressing ourselves out. We're overthinking. That's another trait of the anatomy of the emotional eater. Overdoing, caretaking. We're taking care of the addicts in our lives, right? We're doing, like, we're covering for them.
Yeah.
And it's so, like, we're taking on way too much responsibility. And we're just constantly in the quest for somebody to validate us. And that is just an exhausting way to live.
What are some of the other of the 24 qualities?
Another one is having a racing mind.
Oh,
and so that's a that's a problem. Okay. So we overthink. We're not just overeaters, we're overthinkers. And it's exhausting. So let me tell you the PEP formula, because this is a way for those who are listening who are like, I'm not an emotional eater, I just like food. Okay, we're going to address that, because that's what I thought too. But the problem is that when we are basically as overeaters, we know what food does to us. When we're eating sugar and processed carbs, we have a sense we're going to gain weight, right? We're going to feel like crap. We're not going to have energy, but we don't care. We eat it anyway. But the problem is, what we don't think about is what food is doing for us. So food is basically it's serving us, and the PEP formula, PEP, PEP, is a way for us to start kind of digging into what is it doing for us. Is it more than just I like chocolate? And so the first P stands for painkiller. Okay, so we want to soften the edges. Like life is painful. Life will serve up pain. It's not the purpose of life, but it's inevitable, right? It's like a parent dies, right? Or a parent has Alzheimer's, or we have a dysregulated kid, or, we have to change jobs, or we lose a job. There is no end to how many disturbing, painful things can happen in life. That's life. But when our way of dealing with it is food, we're using food to kill that pain as an anesthetic, to numb. Okay, so that's the first P. The E stands for escape. What are we trying to escape? That very busy mind, because the things we're overthinking about, Amy, are never positive. It's like
all the good comments you got on Instagram, right? No.
I mean, and I call it awfulizing. Like, we're thinking about worst case scenario. We're thinking about all the terrible things that can happen, or all the terrible things that we did, or why did we say that? And, it's endless. And so we just want to get out of our heads. And food does that. It does it really well. Like, you sit in front of the TV and you're just vegging. And you don't feel that, you don't think, your mind slows down, especially with the carbs. And then the last P in PEP stands for punishment. And this one seems counterintuitive because, we use food as a reward. It's like punishment. No, I'm rewarding myself. I had a hard week. I worked really hard. But if you play it out, sure, we're rewarding ourselves. But when you overeat and you feel sick and you feel stuffed and then you don't fit in your pants, that's not exactly a reward. Like, there's a built-in punishment there. And that's because as overeaters, we're also overfeelers, and we feel guilty about everything. And so it's really important to know that we can't be just, running around beating ourselves up with food. It's built in, so painkiller, escape, and punishment. These are three ways that food is serving us. This is what food is doing for us. And I just bring that up because it's just a little test people can take. Like, if you find yourself going to the refrigerator, opening up the refrigerator like 3 times of an evening, I used to do that. I don't know what I thought was going to change from one time to the next. Or what was was there an elf that was putting something in the refrigerator or something? So when you do that, take the PEP test. Like, just see, is there maybe something I'm feeling bad about, or is there something that I'm, beating myself up about, or and just sort of, we just have to start thinking about this in a new way, having a new relationship with our emotional selves, which when we're eating, we don't. We're just checked out.
Mm-mm. I think that escape one resonates for me too with what I was saying about like the things that I know I should be doing, or, like maybe it's a goal you want to accomplish or something, but you're like, I'm busy, and so it's that moment of, or hours of escape where you aren't available to all the bigger things that you really want in life.
Absolutely. And the escape one, part of the emotion that we're trying to escape is fear. And so when you talk about something we don't want to do, it's really like we're afraid to do it. Like, it's because there's a lot of stuff that comes up for us. Like, the thing that would always drive me nuts is like doing my taxes or something.
Oh God, totally.
Right? Like, it's like the last thing I want to do. But it's because I mean, it's an arduous task that has no fun in it whatsoever, but also because I have all these thoughts around it, like I can't do this, or this is hard, or I'm stupid because I can't figure it out, or you know what I mean? Like, so there's like a host of things going on just under the surface that unless we tune in, we'll just be like, I just hate doing taxes. And I want to put it off. But there are levels to it, and the fear around it, or the fear that we're incapable, or all the self-deprecating thoughts, that's
Mhm.
all part of it.
That was a really good example. Really good one. I mean, there's gotta be people that they're like, "Oh, yeah, 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 yeah." And, I mean, there is an element of self-sabotage. Do you talk about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's huge. I mean,
Huge.
everybody who's been on a weight loss journey knows about self-sabotage.
Mhm, mhm.
I do feel like a lot of it comes from the fact that we're just barking up the wrong tree. The wrong tree meaning we're trying to lose weight without going deeper. We're not, it's like we're trying to build a table without any legs. Like the
Yeah.
top of the table is weight loss. The legs are how to sustain that weight loss, which is going to take, some emotional work. It's going to take new habits. It's going to take changing our schedules so we're not stressed out chickens like with our head cut off, and so those are the legs that go underneath the table. If it's just the tabletop, the table's going to fall, you
I
know.
think that's the very interesting part of when you say a lifestyle change. Like, I think a lot of times it can be translated like, "Oh, lifestyle change means I start cooking at home," and it's more than that. It's that is the lifestyle change, right? It's
Yeah.
the filling your spiritual tank in the morning, and maybe that's where these practices come in, that can help you really break these cycles or
Absolutely. Yeah, we don't have a chance without having new tools. We don't have a chance, and honestly, I don't have a chance without some kind of spiritual connection, because I can't, willpower will not work. When it comes to an addiction, we'll forget willpower, and that's a big part of the self-sabotage too, is people are trying to just muscle through it, like, and blaming themselves when they fail. Like as if they're somehow faulty. Willpower will not work on an addictive habit. 'Cause it's not a power issue, it takes so much more, like, we've built into this with a lot of, other habits and thoughts and, just deep lying, beliefs, underlying, beliefs about ourselves, and so we need a multi-pronged approach in order to heal, and it's willpower just won't cut it for us.
what do you tell somebody when they go, "I've tried everything"? Because I think that you probably felt like that, but have they really, right?
Yeah,
What do you
everybody
say?
well, so what I
Mm.
say, and everybody's has, I mean, it feels like it. There's
Right,
and
feels like it.
like if you go on Amazon, there's at least 50,000 books on diet and exercise. Like there's so we
That's probably a low that's probably a low estimate,
we
yep.
couldn't try everything. But what I tell people is you've probably, again, you're trying hard on like you're working hard on the wrong things.
Mhm.
Okay. So if most of what people try is based on the symptom of food and weight, all kinds of exercises, all kinds of diets, all kinds of hacking your body, hacking your genes or hacking your ketones, or it's all physical, stuff, some mindset thrown in, but it really people are working hard on the wrong things. Like, so I usually say, yeah, what you've tried has all been down this road. You have to completely like scrap that and go down this road. Like you've got to change course completely. Otherwise, it's like switching deck chairs on the Titanic. Like you can switch your chairs, but the boat's going down.
Uh,
And so you have to completely stop trying to fix it at the physical level. It's not going to work. It's never worked because overweight is a symptom of overeating, and overeating is a symptom of what's eating me. It
oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it's just a paradigm shift that is hard to make because when you're overeating, it seems like it's about the food. It feels like it's about the food, but it's really not about the food.
Yeah. What was it like for you when you finally got there? When you finally did that work on your, deeper issues?
Well, I can't say I'm there yet. So
I do think it's a work in progress. Yeah. Progress, not perfection, like you said.
really, I don't want to ever arrive. So
Right.
I mean, I do, but I won't. So
Right.
but the point is, I live in an incredible amount of freedom today. Like, I really have to pinch myself. I have such a good life. But yeah, it didn't come easy. I've done a ton of work. The work has been exactly what I teach my clients. So what I did at some point is I codified everything I learned from my mentor. I codified it and I created a whole system around it. And that's what I teach people. And what I did is I took the mystery out of it. There's a lot of mumbo jumbo when it comes to weight loss, and diet advice, forget about it. If you followed all the advice out there, all you could eat is ice.
Yeah.
So there's like, forget, they all cancel each other out. But the point is, there's some things that people tell you that's very nebulous, like, oh, try mindful eating. Well, what does that mean exactly? I get being in the present moment, that kind of thing, but I would always end up just being like, I'm mindful that I'm eating popcorn. Like like that's
Right.
what I'm mindful of. Or people say, oh, and do intuitive eating. Again, these are not bad concepts. But if you're on the higher end of the emotional eating spectrum, right? Take the quiz, get your score. If you're on the higher end of the spectrum, conventional wisdom and advice, it doesn't work for us. So like intuitive eating, I would intuit I should eat all kinds of things I shouldn't eat. Right? I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm feeling brownies, and it's
Yes.
so it's like my signals were off. I couldn't intuit correctly, or in a positive way. So yeah, there's some different things that people are suggesting to us. Of course, we've all heard the eat less, exercise more. Thank you very much. Like, as if I hadn't thought about that. But it's like there's people who are well-meaning, but they don't understand what we struggle with. Like, they don't understand that my hunger is not for food. Even the medications right now that people are using. I mean, I had one woman say, "Yeah, I did. I stopped taking the medication." She's like, "My hunger for food was not the problem. Like, I hungered for something that was not food." I'm like, "Bingo." That's true. And so it's true. We are starving for something that is not food. And so we've got to go deeper. We have to satisfy that hunger, which is it's a soul hunger. And we're also hungry for connection and community. We're very isolated, especially as overeaters, because we typically eat, in private, right? Late at night when nobody's watching us. And so we're very isolated, and then we feel depressed and gross, and we don't want to hang out with our girlfriends. And it's like, it just feeds on itself. And so the truth is, we desperately need to connect with people who get us, who understand what we're struggling with. It's so important. And so we have to really nourish ourselves at a whole nother level in order to heal. And it's so, so important. And that's, I do all my programs in groups because the people in my programs, they get each other. Like, we've all, I mean, you and I, we're like,
Yeah.
this is the first time we're meeting, but we're like sisters,
Yeah.
because we've had this experience, and there is a commonality that we share that just brings us out of the isolation and helps us heal.
Yeah, I'm sure that makes you such an effective leader that you've been through it, that you understand it firsthand.
It's vital. It's
It is.
vital because it's such a crazy condition, and so you have to know how I mean, all the different ways I start my TEDx talk talking about eating out of the garbage, like binging and then throwing out the remains and then going back and getting those cookies I knew were in there and eating them. So I'm like, and I thought I was the only one, Amy. I like, once upon a time when I used to do that, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so disgusting. Like, I'm the worst person in the world. And then turns out like thousands of people have done the same thing because we're so much more alike than we realize when we have this particular affliction. It's just that we're not comparing notes typically because we're living in shame.
Yeah. Oh, God, that's so powerful. That's so powerful. Well, we're coming up on time. What have we missed that we really need to discuss before you go today? Or what's
Well,
on your heart that you want
Well,
to share?
I would just encourage people to reach out for help because the isolation thing, and the shame, it compounds itself and it translates into the message of, I should be able to do this on my own. Like we continue to shame ourselves when we can't do it alone. And I'm just going to say and remind people this is the hardest of all addictions to overcome. No, you can't do it alone. Like, why would you think you could? And the thing is, we don't have shame. We don't have the same kind of messy, self deprecating thoughts around hiring a trainer to kick our butt at the gym. I know I need help. I go to a gym class with other people because if I didn't, I'd quit halfway through. I just would. I know myself. And so I don't have any issues paying this membership thing because I know it gets the job done. But when it comes to hiring somebody to help us with our food issues, we're all like, nope, I got it. I got it. I'll figure it out. Decade after decade, we're still saying that, but it's because we have so much shame that we can't do it alone. And I'm just here to say we can't. I can't. I can't. And to this day, I don't do it alone. I get support, And so it's just really important to know there's no shame in needing help with something like you're eating. You have to take that tiger out of the cage 3 times a day and figure out how to get it back in without losing your backside. That's going to take some skill. That's going to take massive support. I mean, look at the top tennis players or other athletes. They've got coaches. I mean, they don't just have one coach, they have 2 coaches, right? Because they want to get to the top of their game. They want to succeed. They don't want to fart around being mediocre and not getting there. So they hire people to help them. And yet again, when it comes to food, we're like, oh, I should be able to do it alone. I'm just here to say you're not going to do it alone. Get help. Reach out for help. Get the right help, right? Don't focus on food and weight anymore. But definitely don't keep thinking you have to do it on your own. Why waste any more time with it? Seriously, you don't have to suffer.
Yeah, I think sometimes people can have a fear around that, a fear of losing that one piece of joy that they, are clinging
Totally.
to. And
Yep.
it's a big step. They think I'm not going to have this joy anymore.
Yeah.
I think as we were talking, mine coincided too with getting sober. And so, I think that there was that rolled into it like, oh, well, this is still something I can do that satisfies this dopamine or whatever it is. And
Yeah.
so I think that there's probably do you have to counsel people on some kind of grief of giving this up? I mean,
Absolutely. It is a process of surrender. But what's really important for people to know is we're always thinking, I have to give it up and still crave it.
yeah, yeah,
Which
you're
is
right.
kind of like hell on earth, right?
Right.
So I'm here to say that you can have the craving removed
Yeah.
to where it's just not that big a deal to not have it. See, we imagine we're going to want it as much as we want it today and not be able to have it. And again, that's kind of purgatory. And it's the fact is, if you do the work to address your stress, address your emotions, and have new tools for dealing with life, that craving will diminish. The craving is 80 to 90% emotional. There's 10% or so that's physical, right? The sugar, the carbs, that definitely has a physical chemical component, but the rest of it is emotional. So imagine if we just dissolved that craving where you're just neutral. You see cake and you're like, whatever. It looks, it's got pink, color dye frosting, gross. You're just, you're in a different place with it. So that's what I want people to know is you can get to where it's not, you're not crawling the walls craving it. And that's the only hope because diets are take it all away and continue to crave it. And you'll last 2 weeks and then you're back to eating. So really important to know that this is the game changer is when you stop craving it and then you can feel free and neutral around it.
Would 20-year-old Tricia just be like, wow, what? You ever think about talking to your younger self and
Yeah, I mean, it's I've been an amazing journey because I got help so young. I'm super grateful. I know it was it was a set of circumstances where I met my mentor and I said yes to this journey. I said yes to this journey. I'd had enough history of dieting to realize that's not going to work for me, and I am blessed that I was in that strange moment of everything coming together where I said yes to somebody who could truly help me. And then that I've just been, on account of the amazing life I have, I've been driven to show other people how to be able to have that same kind of freedom. So I'm very, very grateful.
Ugh, well, that is so awesome. And you've been a joy to talk to today. How can everybody find you, perhaps work with you? And of course, in the show notes, I will have the link to the emotional eating quiz as well.
Beautiful. That'd be great. My website is probably the easiest, best, fastest way to access everything. It's healyourhunger.com, healyourhunger.com. A link to my podcast is on there. My TEDx talk is on there, and my book is on there. So definitely, and the quiz, of course, is right there, front and center, first page.
Oh, that's so awesome. And yeah, Heal Your Hunger. That's such a powerful title. And I really appreciate all that you shared today and all that you do, because this is so, so important for people. You're changing lives, and it's really incredible. So
It's
thank
been
you.
such a pleasure, Amy. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. And thank you to everyone that turned up today. We would love to hear from you. Please reach out anytime. You can reply to the newsletter. I would love to hear your thoughts. And just thank you so much. This is part of it, right? Learning, opening up, just showing up. You showed up, and I mean, like, that's incredible. So thank you for being here. Keep shining bright. Till next time.
Thank you so much for being here. Please rate, review, and follow us. And we'd love to hear your feedback. Keep shining bright.